Hi guys! So if you're watching this and you don't know what I've chosen to discuss with my project 3, this last project, is negative body shaming, specifically towards women in advertisements, both still and video advertisements. And I'm going to be discussing, hopefully, subtext-wise in my project, why body shaming is not okay. And so for this video, discussing the audience of an article or other form of medium, I have chosen an article from the online website Jezebel that's written a little more specifically towards female millennials. The website Jezebel, it is not a porn site. And I'll attach the link right above or below this video. I would recommend, if you want to read it, reading it before I talk about it in the video, though I will briefly explain what it's about. So what the article is about is, it is about body shaming, but it's also a little bit more about sort of boy who cried wolf body shaming, and whether or not every reaction to a woman's body in a newspaper article is body shaming, or whether it's only body shaming if it's extremely negative. The reason I picked this article is because it does pertain to my Project 3. It is the same subject of body shaming, but the article itself, and why I recommend reading it, is it does bring up some very good points about how not everything written about fashion is body shaming, and sort of where that line is, and where we should decide that line is. Specifically in the article, it discusses the red carpet at the Emmys, and how actresses Lena Dunham and Claire Danes were, both of their dresses were described in an article about fashion in the New York Times, where Dunham was hinted at being heavier, despite the article being about the dresses, and Claire Danes was hinted at being very skeletal and skinny, again despite the fact that the article was about the dresses. And then what the Jezebel article gets into is two different writers' reactions. One writer, Charlotte Cowles, who spoke out against the New York Times article, saying that the blurb from the New York Times, which is included in the Jezebel article, is essentially calling Lena Dunham fat and Claire Danes too skinny, and how it's body shaming, and how the New York Times should only have focused on the dresses that the women were wearing and not have commented on their weight. Another writer, Jessica Gross, isn't exactly pro the New York Times article discussing the women's dresses, but what she makes a good point of saying that it would be difficult to discuss the dresses without discussing the women in the dresses and also the women's physiques. For instance, Claire Danes' collarbone is very much on display in the dress that she is wearing, and the writer Jessica Gross makes a point of saying that it would be ridiculous to talk about the dress and not about the woman in the dress and the features that the dress accentuates. So two very different points of view. Now, the article itself, as I said, Jezebel is aimed at more of a millennial female audience, which of course is the audience for this article about body shaming. I would definitely say teens, 20s, and 30s would be the primary age. The primary sex would be female, as I'm assuming that Jezebel has more female readers than male readers. I actually do read it. I've read it before I looked it up for this project. So of course there's exceptions to every rule. And so the group characteristics of the readership of Jezebel would be younger, and it would be a pretty decent sized group. Now Jezebel, I doubt, has millions and millions of readers, as say BuzzFeed does. However, I guarantee you, and I couldn't quite pull up the comments section, but I guarantee you if I did, there would be a lot of comments, that it was at least in the thousands, the readership of this article. It wasn't just read by 20 people, myself included. So to quickly answer the three questions before I move on to my personal project, the demographic analysis is again female, younger, and a larger group. The psychological analysis of the audience of the Jezebel article would be that prior to reading this article, I guarantee you most of the readership of this article knew what body shaming was. This was not an article describing what body shaming is. It was an article discussing the line of what is body shaming and what is not. The reason I wanted to discuss it for this video is that my project, going into it, I'm going to assume that most of my audience knows what the words body shaming together mean. I'm not going to describe body shaming in my project. I'm going to assume that my audience knows exactly what that means. And finally, the contextual analysis of the Jezebel articles, that of course it is voluntary to read. It's not a schoolwork assignment for anybody. If you're reading an article on Jezebel, you're reading it based on your own free will. And so, of course, attendance is voluntary for reading this. And why are they reading it? Hopefully to learn a new perspective about body shaming. The picture above the article is a picture of Lena Dunham in her green Prada dress that's described in the article. So perhaps females are reading it just to read about the fashion, and perhaps others, due to the title, are reading about it to learn about a new perspective on body shaming and whether or not the New York Times was right or wrong to comment on the sizes of the women wearing the dresses. Finally, moving on to my project, I am going to be doing a satirical quiz online, as well as either a still image or a series of memes, which are still pictures depicting a darker side of body shaming. And my audience, again, I probably shouldn't have chosen this article because a lot of my answers now are going to be the same, but my audience I am intending to be between the ages of 18 and 40. I'm assuming a larger portion, meaning 51% or more, will be female. And I'm expecting it to reach not nearly as many people as the Jezebel article, but I am putting it online, and putting it online as opposed to hanging a poster in your local Starbucks, more people are actually likely to see it, even if it's a busy Starbucks. And so that's sort of the demographic analysis of my audience for the upcoming Project 3. Psychological analysis would be, again, that I'm assuming my audience knows the definition of body shaming, and I'm assuming that they believe that it is wrong. I'm not expecting too many people to take the quiz assuming that body shaming is okay, despite the fact that there are millions of Americans out there who do believe that body shaming is okay. The memes, on the other hand, which I'm leaning more towards memes than a still image, I can see lots of people reading and disagreeing with. However, the purpose of the memes is to do what, say, the Jezebel article did, and put another perspective of body shaming out there in the world, instead of just the fundamental blanket definition of body shaming, which is calling someone fat is wrong, calling someone skinny is okay. That's sort of the basic bare bones what we think when we think of body shaming, when in reality it extends to, calling anybody's body something negative is wrong. And finally, sorry, I'm just reading my notes here. I am expecting to hopefully tug more at emotions with my memes than anything sort of factual, because I'm not going to be listing facts with my memes. The satirical quiz is meant to be more comedic in tone, unlike this Jezebel article, which, despite the fact that it has a few jokes in the Jezebel article, is not meant to be comedic. So this quiz is going to be a bit more of a satire, and I'll be able to explain that better to my partner next week when we partner up and discuss our project. So that's my video for this week. I tried to keep it short, but I do recommend reading the Jezebel article about body shaming, because it does, split the line of was the New York Times right or wrong, and it's just an interesting read. But otherwise, I look forward to watching your videos this week, and I am excited about finishing up our final project. So thanks, guys. Bye.